I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. John D. Rockefeller. It is the Industrial Revolution. You got new machines, new jobs, but no one to work them. You need workers who show up on time and do what you tell them. They must be efficient, smart, but not too smart, have the willingness to succeed, and a competitive spirit wouldn't hurt. So, how do you do it? You create an education system, of course, but you have to be extra careful. If you make them too independent, unique, and ambitious, they'll take you down. But if you make them obedient, well, you can keep the empire running. That's exactly what Rockefeller did. A system that crushes the child's spirit and shapes them into the perfect wage slave. A system that still works today. This is the ugly truth of America's education system.
These are days when many are discouraged. In the 93 years of my life, depressions have come and gone. Prosperity has always returned and will again. And now on this my birthday, I desire to reaffirm my belief in the fundamental principles upon which this country was founded: liberty, unselfish devotion to the common good, and belief in God.
In the early years, schooling in America was disorganized. Many children didn't go to school because they were poor and ethnic. They were often excluded based on gender, location, and race. The few children who did get educated were mostly white children. Back then, children were taught through local schools organized by groups of parents, towns, or churches. Traveling teachers also organized tuition-based schools. Some of the poor went to charity schools managed by the church, but not many got the chance to be educated. Rich children went to boarding schools or dame schools. Others got homeschooled or received private tutoring. Those that didn't have the chance to educate themselves would take apprenticeships. Here, they would receive basic instruction in reading, writing, and math. Basically, the knowledge that was deemed necessary for a specific profession. In the early 1700s and early 1800s, many of the architectural and technological advancements led to rapid urbanization. People from rural areas were moving to the cities for better job opportunities. The advancements in printing, communication, and other technologies made it easier to produce mass-scale products. This heavily influenced the rise of big business.
Public systems of education paid for from taxation were invented to meet the needs of the industrial economy that was emerging in the 18th and 19th centuries, where we needed a workforce who could do certain sorts of things.
Our ordinary workmen have a tradition of skill behind them.
The high schools of today were essentially designed in the 19th century, and they reached their zenith in the 1950s.
Companies that invested in new technologies to boost efficiency and become powerhouses of their industries. We're talking about Standard Oil Company, Carnegie Steel Company, Swift & Company, Meatpacking, Ford Motor Company, General Electric, American Tobacco Company. But without a formal education, it was impossible to teach that many people specialized skills to do industrial jobs. So this shift created a demand for skilled and educated workers. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Albert Einstein. Everything changed in 1902 when John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates created the General Education Board. The goal was simple: invest. Raise more than $100 million to fund the American public school system, then use that to influence and shape human consciousness. Establish and maintain this system to create a capable workforce that'll bring in more money. It's a win-win. Of course, in the eyes of the public, Rockefeller is a saint. Kids get a better chance at finding a job with better pay, better everything. No need to work on farms or other jobs that require hard labor for low wages. This is a perfect time to educate all the ignorant and uncivilized people. They even made it illegal to not go to school. Suddenly, every parent sending their child off to a free public school during one of the most crucial developmental periods of a child's life. The system can shape them exactly how they want them. They choose how to teach the child to be obedient and what to fight for. They teach the child to follow orders, accept mediocrity, and fear failure. Fear the system. The system was designed by industrialists to create obedient factory workers. The goal was simple: get the children to follow instructions and memorize information. There was no need to think about who built stuff or why. They just needed to be dumbed down and comply. So every child will go to school filled with joy, energy, and creativity and come out as an obedient worker who will rock the machines, sailboats, and keep the factories running, because these are all traits that make you a good worker, while the rich get richer. The entire administrative hierarchy of education stuck to the model of industrial bureaucracy. Children would march from one place to another and sit in designated areas. The bells would ring to announce the change of time. If a child needed to go to the bathroom, they must ask for permission first. Sounds familiar? That strict system of seating, grading, marking, and grouping was the perfect introduction to an industrialized society. Here, the authoritarian role was the teacher. They were expected to be precise, an effective instrument for teaching basic mathematics, writing, and reading skills. But beneath that system lay a specific training requirement: the need to teach punctuality, repetitive work, and obedience. For factory workers to be obedient and do the work without question, they had to be prepared to do brutally repetitive jobs and slave away at machines. They needed discipline. This system set the framework for successful workers, which eventually spreads to other parts of the world. Of course, education has changed over the years, but is it really that different today?
What if I told you that every single day kids go to school, they become less intelligent? The education system has done. Over just these 5 to 6 years in the education system, these creative children have turned into these teenagers that are unwilling to think outside of the box.
The idea of academic success is still based on a grading system. It still has tests, piles of homework, long school hours, and loads of information to memorize, most of which has no use in the real world. The American education system has been around for almost 400 years, and in all that time, the curriculum has changed, including the available technology seen in modern classrooms. Now we see children with tablets, laptops, and mobile devices. Children can watch movies and have an interactive learning experience. But there's one thing that's always stayed the same: memory tests and forced repetition, following directions, learning to tolerate long hours of tedious work, and practicing punctuality. Basically, the educational system is still preparing students for the industrial instead of the information age. While this wouldn't have been a big deal during the Industrial Revolution, times have changed. Jobs require a creative mindset, diversity, and an advanced level of thinking. They require productivity, imagination, critical thinking, and adaptability, all of which are skills schools can prepare you for.
Now, the best of those students want to do well, but when they realize what they're capable of, they're either stuck in a path of academic mediocrity, or they are so close to graduation they just need a credit.
During the industrial age, the education system used a teacher-centered approach. The teachers would be the main source of knowledge. This was an excellent approach for that era, but this kind of approach in today's modern era is a setback. Not only is this learning style outdated, it's also ineffective. Even if this education style is good for improving memory skills and basic recall, it floods a child's mind with too much information. Children are more likely to do last-minute studying right before a test or a quiz. But when that test is over, many forget everything they've learned. That's because they've been studying with the sole purpose to get better grades. Today, we live in the age of AI. Why memorize stuff when a computer can do it for you? Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Aristotle. The grading system is not the only problem. Homework is also stressing children out. It's a major problem for students in high school and middle school. It puts a lot of pressure, limits free time, and creates a sense of disdain. In a recent survey, experts asked 516 Westwood students to grade how much homework stresses them out. For a majority of 85.7%, their stress was either a 7, 8, 9, or 10. When asked why homework was such a big problem, students explained that they had to skip family events, avoid going out with friends, or do anything fun because they had too much to do, and homework was time-consuming. Many students also explained that they believe they do enough work at school, but they also have to take more work home. This is just too much. A normal high school day starts at around 7:30 a.m. and ends at about 3 p.m. Children do extracurricular activities in the afternoon and early evenings during the school week. But sometimes these activities happen on the weekends. That's an entire workday spent in school. Plus, the activities and the homework, wouldn't that be enough to teach children everything they need to know? Then how come students are still not ready to face the real world after they graduate? When finals are just around the corner, stress levels escalate. Another survey shows that 88.31% of respondents felt stressed this school year. They would panic a lot, overthink, and miss out on other important stuff in life. During finals, students who want to do good often lose sleep Because of the pressure to succeed, they would sacrifice hours of sleep just to get more schoolwork done. Teens who pursue multiple extracurricular activities are even more stressed. They do so to stand out later when they want to apply for college. But at what cost? The stress just keeps piling up. This can have a huge impact on their mental health. In the past century, accreditation has been a major focus, if not an obsession. Having a degree used to mean the difference between getting a low-paying job and an excellent career. It represented credibility and status. Nowadays, a degree is a basic requirement, but things are changing.
Well, oftentimes business education today, and I see it all the time, kids come out of college, the best colleges, Wharton and Harvard and Stanford and some of the great business schools, and they'll come out and they won't have practical experience. There's too many case studies that aren't practical.
You know, we ask kids that are 16 to 18 years old to make $100,000 debt decisions when they go off to university, and they're not prepared for that.
In this era of technology, rapid development, automation, and global connectivity, the demands of the current job market surpass the relevance of a traditional college degree. At the end of the day, it all comes down to what you have to offer that would topple the rest of the competition. This is something you have to learn on your own, and it's the knowledge you don't get in school, like practicing soft skills, project management, keeping up with the latest technological advances, etc. In other words, the market decides what's important, not a degree. Now, hold on. I'm not saying that children don't need education. I'm saying that the current education system needs a complete revamp. There has been a huge change in what makes degrees valuable. Employers need out-of-the-box thinking. This is what inspired many tech giants like Amazon, Google, and IBM to hire applicants without a degree, some of them even opening up their own universities. Recently, one even made headlines. A teacher in Texas was reprimanded for teaching her third-grade students about their constitutional rights. Her video went viral, reaching well over 1.6 million views. She then asked her TikTok followers, why is that a problem? Why are they worried?
Just for like some context and clarity here, this concern particularly came about after they started to notice that my third grade students, my class, was sitting during the Pledge of Allegiance during our assemblies, and which they decided to do for themselves after learning during Holocaust Remembrance Week about propaganda and the Hitler Youth, and why Hitler targeted young people and students and children in particular to spread his ideology. And they were curious actually about where the Pledge of Allegiance came from in the United States, and we looked it up together and discovered that after the Civil War, when the country was divided about slavery, they needed to bring the country together. And who best to instill patriotism than young children, because it's easier to learn than to unlearn. And so in like the 70s, I don't remember, they created the Pledge of Allegiance and required it be said in classrooms across the United States in response to the country being like fraught over, you know, the issue of like owning Black people. And they added the under God part in the 1970s because Republicans were afraid of communism, classic, and atheism. And so my kids, my students, decided amongst themselves that they didn't want to do that anymore, and they wanted to actually protest the Pledge of Allegiance. And instead of getting in trouble for being disruptive, which is what they initially wanted to do, I told them that there is also silent protesting, which is sometimes more powerful than being loud and disruptive and getting yourselves into trouble. Then I told them about Colin Kaepernick, and they decided that they would rather sit during the Pledge of Allegiance. And my admin doesn't believe that they are staying seated for reasons that they can fully articulate and fully understand, and is concerned that I am, she said, indoctrinating my students, indoctrinating them. And I am just so grateful that I'm finally getting acknowledged for all the hard work I have done this year to indoctrinate my students into being critical thinkers. They're making decisions for themselves, and not just because an authority tells them that they have to.
She also talked about reading Harry Potter books to students. These are fantasy books which can inspire the child's love for reading. But for many, It was put into question whether book series such as these would be relevant to the grade level. Despite the teacher's efforts, it appears that the educational system considered her a threat to the development of students. So, where does this leave us? More and more people are homeschooling their children. During the 2020-2021 school year, there were 3.7 million homeschool students in the United States. The COVID pandemic had a huge impact on the schooling system, which led to a number of changes in public schooling. Many schools turned to online teaching, but the trajectory remained the same. Literacy rates have remained the same since the early 1970s, while there has been little to no progress in mathematics since the 1990s. Testing is also outdated, and children are spending too much time in school. The best way to change this would be to get to the root of the problem. One solution would be to start at an older age. For example, many children enter the public education system when they're just 5 years old. According to the University of Cambridge, it is best to delay the start of formal education. The reason for that is relatively simple. Children need time to play and experience the world. Giving them this time can be highly beneficial for their overall learning and development. The current education system is too focused on teaching students for a test and then grading them with passing or failing colors. This approach teaches the child how to memorize as fast as possible instead of how to think. This testing culture puts a huge strain on both the students and the teacher's mental health. These test results determine the final outcome, which is why many students who fail just give up. If the testing culture gets a complete overhaul, then it's possible to reduce student stress and decrease turnover rates. What we need is a student-centered approach, an education system that focuses on active learning, which boosts the learner's self-direction, confidence, autonomy, and personal responsibility for learning. The very core of tests is to hone an analytical mind. Children are expected to memorize different dates, concepts, and facts. It's about training students to learn the answers, but it doesn't train them on how to find these answers. We need to let the children be children and improve their minds. To do that, schools should teach students how to develop values, intellect, and critical thinking. It should set the free individual mind. Students should question where these answers are really coming from. Are they really reliable? Or is there a better way to find an answer to that question? Then, there are learning styles. Every student is different. They have their own personalities, goals, ideas, and preferred ways of learning. Under the current education system, there's no place for individuality. Every student must follow the specified guidelines and stick to the exact same goals. Get better grades. For the education system to improve, it needs to consider the different learning styles. We have auditory learners. These students learn more effectively by listening to a lecture instead of reading and memorizing information. Visual learners like to see an example of a project to understand it. They remember things by sight. Writing/reading learners prefer to learn by reading textbooks, handouts, and notes. They like to rewrite and reread the notes over and over again. Kinesthetic learners like a hands-on approach. They prefer to be actively engaged in their education and learn through trial and error. The learning styles can also change over time, depending on the student's age, interest, subject, and type of knowledge that the student prefers to learn. When we accommodate all learning styles, we give children a chance to grow and improve. The problem is, the exam-oriented approach is a one-size-fits-all grading system that just doesn't work. It produces drone workers with industrialist values rather than capable individuals who can grow and adapt. The future of education is to teach students skills like complex problem solving, teamwork, soft skills, work ethic, and emotional intelligence. It's about practicing skills like interpersonal intelligence and personal finance, all of which are sadly ignored in the standard curriculum. Students should learn at their own pace in their own time, and software tools can make the process more efficient and accessible. This doesn't just teach students how to practice organizational and time management skills, but also how to put them into practice in the real world. Software tools can also be used to monitor the students' results and achievements over time. Also, every student has unique strengths and interests that help them excel at different subjects and skills. Rather than criticizing and condemning them for these differences, we should accept and celebrate them. We can generally see two teaching methods. The authoritarian method, where the teacher dictates the class and a student is expected to sit in a row, face forward, and don't talk to anyone in class. Students are expected to obey and ask for permission to go to the bathroom. But we also see the opposite happen, when overreacting parents take complete control over the teacher and are allowed to manipulate the system. This gives power to the students and allows them to disrespect the teachers. But if neither the students nor teachers should have control of the classroom, then who should? The question is, should we be taking the autonomy away from students? That's where the education system needs a completely different perspective.
As people who are interested in making school work again, about a very simple question. What is school for? And I say, take 4 blocks and make them into something interesting. Now, it's an interesting question because you can use the letters or you can use the shapes. You can spell a word. You can put a profanity there. You can spell a word that means nothing. You can make the shape into a bridge. And people hate this because there's no right answer and there's a million wrong answers. They hate this because there's no dummy's guide to how to make something interesting out of blocks when you're 30 years old.
Students need precise, focused education, knowledge that matters, knowledge they're going to use later in life, instead of cramming their minds with a bunch of stuff they're never going to use or not interested in learning. Measuring experience instead of test scores. Multiple choice questions and exams are useless. Computers can answer them now. They can do that faster and provide accurate results in any given subject. What we really care about is experience. Education should focus on teaching children the right kind of experience, how to get it, how to improve it, and how to work on themselves to achieve their goals. Whatever that is, experience is going to catapult the students forward. The truth is, most students who go to school do it because they have to be there. End of story. But if education gives students a sense of purpose without harming them emotionally, they can find their own calling. This is what we need. This is what we want. A generation with a purpose. And cooperation instead of isolation can work wonders. Why do we ask students to do things by themselves and then put them in the real world and expect them to cooperate? I think we've come to a time when the education system should be guiding students toward achieving their goals. Students should be given independence and responsibility. There should be respect for boundaries and commitments, but the interaction between a student and a teacher should be on an equal footing. This can be achieved through negotiated contracts, like a trade-off of sorts, where students agree on their performance or behavior, and the teacher agrees to guide the student on the level of privileges or freedom that the child can enjoy. Education should be decentralized. We're so used to the idea that students should get their knowledge from one institution, so we strive to choose the best. We spend a ton of sleepless nights to get into the best school and end up severely depressed when we don't get accepted. Why? When that program is challenged and education is less institutionalized and more accessible, students can have a much better chance at learning what they want and how they want it. This creates a likable schooling experience. Schools should also provide a safe space for children to experiment. This makes the material easier to digest instead of oversimplifying things and telling students what to do and what not to do. Let the students explore, exchange information, question, adapt, and invent. Let them try new things. Let them be creative. When a student succeeds, we can give them immediate feedback. Grades provide negative feedback. So, how about gamifying the learning experience? Collecting points, earning levels, getting titles, obtaining awards. This is something that games are using, and it keeps the players coming back for more. In other words, education should be exciting, motivating, and challenging. It should prepare students for the outside world in a way it has never done before. But the truth is, we still have a long way to go before our education system gets to this point. Well, it is only a matter of time before the current educational systems have no choice but to adapt to the growing trends and the change in workforce demands. The question is, how long will it take for the education system to become what we need it to be? How far off are we from the ideal? Is perfection possible? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more content like this. Until next time.